to speculate on Endpoint. I think they had a very solid offseason, even better than most people were expecting. So that just sort of shows to you out there at home, you know, who might not be necessarily aware of who these players are on Stormtroopers, that they're getting picks from our desk against a team that has been as good as they have been during the offseason Endpoint.
Well, this is the season of upsets, or the... Well, I wouldn't even say that. It is the season of upsets. It's the weekend of upsets. It's a completely new format. And players on the bubble have been waiting for their chance. They have been waiting for this moment. There's a lot of very talented Rocket League players out there, but that barrier to entry was a lot higher before. Now, there's nothing separating these teams. Endpoint, team with names that we're familiar with, but apparently, Jack, even in that Fusion tournament, as we've been talking about, he is nobody to scoff at. And this one could be a very close series. The desk giving proper respect to the Stormtroopers.
That's Naris. Most experienced player we have here on this roster and across the entirety of the lobby, but apparently Jack, he doesn't care anything for your experience, launches a shot, and Relating Wave had to be game to make sure he was that one. Almost a double commit. Dead Monster has to make sure he spots the play. We'll keep it out.
He called out Metanaris' experience, being an E-League champion back on Weedem Girls before they got picked up by Team Envy, I believe it was, after they won that. And Metanaris, he's even been to the finals in the RLCS World Championship, so he is an excellent player, a lot of history.
You get the feeling that this is one of his best opportunities to start returning to that upper area, because it was 2 seasons in a row, finalist and top 3 over in London.
And it was TSM, I believe, but sorry about that, Shogun. It was TSM.
Was always foiled, though, by the Dignitas roster, but this one, and with a team like Virtuoso, who has been on point all day, it could be his best chance in a long time to start getting back to those grand finals.
Virtuoso getting his hands dirty, going for that bump. Didn't get the demo, but he gets the bump. That's enough to clear off the goal line.
1-0. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see how Stormtroopers respond here. Yes, Gibbs was saying that they had a better performance, especially from Polar, but that was an off-stream game. Maybe it's the case of being on the stream that could put them back a little bit. I think they'll just want to get on the board as quickly as possible, really settle down. Relating Wave doesn't want to let that happen, though. Polar, good clear. Would have liked Dead Monster to be on the far side. That is something that can be difficult to get the confidence to do as well, especially against a team like Endpoint. You need to be confident to leave someone in midfield as a passing option off the backboard. Relating Wave is going to leave it for Metza, and that was a good shout.
Very good defense from Metanaris, and that's one of his best attributes, I feel. Metanaris fits in so well on any team, but defensively, always in the right spot at the right time, getting those key touches. He's doing that here early for Endpoint, and things are looking good out of the gate for him.
Metanaris has always typically been a cheat code for many teams that have picked him up. You know, if you've got 2 players that work really well together and you don't really want to spend the time figuring out how a 3-man rotation is going to work if you add someone else in, you give Metza a call. He'll cover everything that you have currently not.
And he, you know, you think back to his history, Shogun, back on Team Method, before they became Complexity, they were always placing better than anyone expected them to, always having some extra little piece of magic, and I attribute so much of that to Metanaris as a player. Even when he went over to Weedem Girls, when they won E-League, eventually getting picked up by TSM, he's had these moments in his career where you think he's down and out, and he comes right back and makes plays and gets wins with 2 teams, almost getting a goal there.
Okay, Dead Monster. Apparently you have ice in your veins. Just saw it come towards him and just went, yeah, I'm good. I'm right in the position I need to be. I'm just going to sit here and it'll land on me. But it's one of those things of all those time in the dribble challenges. You start to figure out exactly how to kill the ball, even when it is launched at you at power. Given this role that we have just discussed about Metanaris, it is now all eyes on Virtuoso and Relating Wave. They will be enabled to their utmost degree to do what they want to do. Now they've got to perform it. Good save and even better cleanup. Relating Wave spotted it quickly and came to help out Virtuoso. Still 1-0.
Those are the ones when you're playing on your couch where you start leaning and you almost fall off. That was very close. Virtuoso, I didn't even think he had a chance at saving that ball, and then getting the assistance from Relating Wave. Relating Wave, I love his patience in the corner and on the goal line. Relating Wave always having great vision, knowing what he can get away with. And that time, he was saving the day after that brilliant save from Virtuoso.
Quick reminder that whoever does lose this one is not out of the tournament just yet. We have still got one more round. However, they would be at 2 wins, 2 losses, meaning that they go into a round of gameplay where it is win and you go through, or lose and you go home. And this is a double tap opportunity.
Wow.
Good touch from Metza. And that backboard has been a no-fly zone currently because Metza Norris has covered it both times they've tried to attack it on Stormtrooper's side.
And a bump from Virtuoso again. Wasn't able to steal the boost. Final seconds.
Cleared by Metza. That is horrid for Dead Monster, especially with Metza still following him. And he is in no rush to make this any easier. Apparently Jack will be tasked with keeping this play going, but there's no way he can do that. Endpoint takes the 1-0 victory. And if that one sounds familiar to you, it's because Stormtroopers, that might be the scoreline that they hate the most.
Endpoint getting a clean win. Virtuoso, the one goal that that happened in this game was from a Virtuoso play, I believe, or a bump on the keeper. And then Metzenaris, that last play from him was so important. That save coming towards his own net, that was such a tough save for him to make, and he was able to get it. So all around, a great win for Endpoint, exactly what you expect from him.
And I think I'm going to have to just go straight back to the same analysis I had on Stormtroopers earlier on. They're being too clean. It's like they've got players with certain skill sets, but they've looked at how every other team and says, okay, well, we have to play like that. No, you've got things that you do really well. And they don't, for my tastes, James, seem to be leaning into it. They're actually going away from their strengths.
And you're right. You just have to lean into it. I think give Jack some space, let him flick, try to dodge those demos, get Endpoint to overcommit, send somebody up, take some risks. We didn't really see that many risks come out from Stormtroopers. So we'll see if they change things up in this second game. But Endpoint, only one goal that they were able to score, very low scoring. So I wonder even for Endpoint what they'll bring to the table this game.
I think they'll watch what we saw earlier on and realize that one goal has been enough more often than not. Jack decides to take it. Didn't want to give it to Polar instead. Used him as a passing option. Who's going to be first? It's Dead Monster. Oh. And he spotted that. I think he spotted the relating wave was a little bit far in front of him. Realized his two teammates weren't back yet. So though it looks like a weak shot from relating wave, I actually feel like that was the correct decision.
Sometimes you just have to hit the space, fill that space, try to keep possession. Virtuoso getting a demo even on the defensive end, and we saw Polar was going in for the bump or going in for a demo by him all on his own. So even if he were to open that net wide open, Virtuoso completely stopping that attack, looking for demos on every point on the field.
Launched again. Relating Wave is going to lead Endpoint to their first offense of the game so far. Metza wants to make it worthwhile, but off the post. Keeper and the rest of it covered, and now Relating Wave is all by himself all the way back. Dead Monster trying to make him sure it was going to be a little bit more of a difficult time. Ended up taking too much time to really set up, and that gave Metza plenty of opportunities to really move in. Virtuoso is the target for the pass. Wasn't direct enough. This has been better so far from Stormtroopers. Look like they are at least going even in the midfield, if not have a slight advantage with territory gained, although they need to avoid staying still. Dead Monster had a moment there where he just stopped, and it was that split second that Virtuoso came crashing into him.
And that goal was left vulnerable for a moment. Had Metzenaris put a stronger shot on net, then he might have been able to score. And now the table's turning. Despite Stormtroopers having a majority of the possession early on, we see Endpoint starting to get a crack at the net.
Oh, bump on apparently Jack. He's got the ceiling reset. Thank you very much for the extra power, he says, as Dead Monster moves in. And Metza, once again, is the stopper, but he's not going to get anywhere near this one. Beautiful infield pass, and it is levered into the net.
And that's what you want to see, the passing option. Apparently, Jack could have gone for backboard, maybe gone for a shot himself. No, he scopes out Polar coming across the center of the field. That is what you want to do. Such a difficult play to defend. And now they've got the lead.
Dead Monster and apparently Jack would have gained a lot of fans during the offseason. And they'll be happy just to see them on the board now. It means that we're not going to have to keep bringing comparisons back up to their earlier series against Dignitas. Now they can work on out from here. Virtuoso already up against apparently Jack. And the main difficulty so far for Stormtroopers hasn't even necessarily been their style of play in this game. It's just Metza Norris has been a real foil for them. The good news, Stormtroopers, is that Metza can only save once. They can get him out of the play. They've had much better success. Infield pass. Here is Metza's shot. A little bit too close, but a great pre-jump from Polo. We'll keep it out.
Polar reading the car language of Metzenaris, seeing where that shot was going to come in, got up so quickly. Metzenaris had a lot of power on that, but Polar was in the perfect spot. Great defense from him. We were just giving Metza kudos for his defensive stops. Polar getting a big one there.
Popped up. That's not a great ball from apparently Jack. He'll be happy to see that nobody from Endpoint really took it. Him, Polar, and Dead Monster both jumping. Need to try and keep it clean now. 1 goal up, 2 minutes left. Relating Wave would like to see that go away. Huge stop. Polar has to try and get close. And Virtuoso wrong foots him. And Dead Monster will clean up the pieces. Relating Wave keeps the pressure on. Pass over to Virtuoso. Great save from apparently Jack. And Dead Monster will take his time. Get all of your players back into position. Take a deep breath and hold on, because you've got 1.5 minutes before you take your first game.
And I'm sure many people are scratching their head right there, wondering how on earth that Stormtroopers have managed to get a 2-goal lead after that whole exchange. And apparently Jack, coming off the ceiling, just leaves it for Polar. Polar knocks that one in. Unreal. I thought we were going to have a tie game.
That was one of those ones where you kind of hope the replays can go back like another 30 seconds or so, because there was a lot going on that led to that one going in. It was smart from Virtuoso. You know, he saw that player was definitely going to have the save, tried to slow it down, play it behind them, but you have to really gauge how much power you're going to get on it, and just didn't quite work. His Metza has the infield option, will take it, and another huge stop. Stormtroopers are on fire at the moment, and they will make it 3.
And this is a result of filling those shooting lanes. They are reading Endpoint like a book. Over and over again, predicting where the shot's going to come in, getting there early, filling the lane. Endpoint, too predictable. They shoot it right where Stormtroopers are waiting. And things just crumble.
As much as I was praising Metza earlier on for his defensive play, I'm going to sort of criticize what we've seen from him offensively so far, because you were saying they were very readable. It's a case of, if you see Metza coming in, you know he's never going to hook shot it. He can take that angle where it looks like either hook shot or infield pass. And when it comes to Metza, it's almost the 100% going to be the infield pass. I think he's got to be a little bit more selfish. Make it that tiny bit more difficult for his opponents to take a look at and say, okay, this is the play.
And sometimes you can go for that fake on the goal line, or the change-up. I think we did see it on the play where the ball was completely whiffed. But Endpoint, oh man, and another one here. This is ugly. Stormtroopers have Endpoint's number, Shogun. This is a beating.
So hat trick for Polar, 2 goals for apparently Jack. I think they got 41 seconds to try and get one onto Dead Monster. This game is over and done. For Endpoint, this has just been truly horrid. It was even for a long, long time, but as soon as that first goal went in, they have truly crumbled. That midfield has been non-existent. Metza's going to get himself a goal. Really worth too much anymore as they just try and figure out what happened in game 2.
An odd touch there from Polar off the kickoff. A kickoff goal for Endpoint. So at least they get on the board. That might help morale going into the next game. But Stormtroopers, this game, have been all over Endpoint. Every single shot that Endpoint took, even on their plays where they set it up wonderfully, the lanes getting filled so quickly by Stormtroopers, who seem to have that boost advantage, the positioning advantage, and sometimes they're playing so fast to catch up for when they are out of position, and it's working out for them because Endpoint is doing the predictable shot.
And this can get even more scary as well, because we're seeing so often third man, still in a position where they're trying to track back, so they can't come immediately in to keep that pressure going. Are they getting themselves a second goal? No, not quite. Stormtroopers taking game 2, 5 goals to 1. But for me right now, James, even if it's not an instant counterattack, let's say they get apparently Jack or Dead Monster in a dead ball situation, just one-on-one against an Endpoint defender. You don't really have money on the Endpoint defender in that situation.
Not necessarily. And Endpoint has struggled a few times defensively in this matchup, but apparently Jack, he's shown us what he's capable of. 100% goal participation. Him and Polar, the entirety of the offense. Polar getting a hat trick. Apparently Jack getting the Playmaker award. And just taking a look at the highlights from this match, you were seeing how well on the goal line, on defense, that the Stormtroopers were playing. Dead Monster rather, getting that dribble out on the goal line. This was so one-sided, Shogun.
Certainly was, and game 3 will do an awful lot to tell us how exactly the rest of this series is going to play out. Good news for Endpoint is that it's very rare that we see these sort of matches replicated. It looked like they went, 3-0 down and just sort of gave up on it. So it's difficult to really gauge too much in those last 2 minutes what we were really getting. But they will look for a much better start here, as suddenly they are the team that have got the questions being asked of them. And Stormtroopers make up for a lack of goals earlier on. 5 in 5 minutes, you'll take that.
Kind of reminds me of the old school flip side where you'd see them get a Brazil in a series and still lose it. Polar almost reading that one off the crossbar. A scary start for Endpoint. And you see this happen quite a bit in Rocket League, Shogun, where you have a team that just says this game is over. Scratch it. It gets out of hand. Things get ugly. And then they just get focused in the next game and in the series. So this one will be a telling game, I feel, for Endpoint, who still hasn't, at times and in tournaments, hasn't really impressed me with their offensive output, but continue to make plays and get scrappy wins.
Certainly not. Polar doesn't really have too many options going with him, so he's just going to try and buy a bit of time. Ends up launching it too long, and apparently Jack barely making it. Infield pass over to Relating Wave, and just pinging it between one another.
And you had mentioned how Metsunaris, 9 times out of 10, will go for the infield pass. What are you going to do there? You saw the early challenge. It wasn't bad timing on that challenge. But Metsunaris getting it over to Relating Wave in a well-placed shot. And that was impressive offense coming out from Endpoint.
Immediately able to take the momentum shift. Metza over the top. Virtuoso. Double tap opportunity. Can't do it. It's the same thing that we saw at the end of the last game as well. They did go for the double tap, and they couldn't quite hit it there either, as Virtuoso will keep the pressure on. Metza decides to launch at net. Stormtroopers doing a decent job defensively of just sort of slingshotting their defenders to go for blocks.
That's what I was a little worried about for Stormtroopers, because if Endpoint starts getting a little more bold and goes for some fakes, they might see those defenders fly right by him. Because they are committing hard and committing early.
Oh, Dead Monster. He's got to go quick, and he's managed to nail it. 1-1. And not for the first time. Endpoint have not got players back on the rotation.
Virtuoso slow on getting back, trying to get boosted at the midfield. He was expecting Metza to get more of a slowdown on that ball, but Metza wasn't able to get any kind of stop going near the midfield, and a quick counterattack for Dead Monster, and we're even.
Dead Monster, ceiling shot available, decides to hold on to the flip, and now apparently Jack can be all by himself. Chose to play it early, and I think that decision was made by seeing the name Virtuoso in front of him. Certainly cannot blame him for that. Metza's still on 0 boost as well. 5 boost from Relating Wave. This is all on Virtuoso. He's on 0. Awful situation for Endpoint to currently be in, but maybe that touch from Virtuoso will help them out. Pass over to Dead Monster. It wasn't great. And Relating Wave will keep it out. Virtuoso now using what little boost he has to try and give his team a little bit of breathing room, and Endpoint seem like they've survived. Apparently Jack tries to keep it going. I think the chance has now eluded them. Relating Wave over to Metza. Couldn't make contact.
But Endpoint, they hold on. I was worried, Shogun, for Endpoint, seeing how they were all on 12 boosts or less for a good portion of that defensive stand. You're just waiting for Stormtroopers to attack the high backboard. There's nothing you could do in that situation, but Endpoint hold on. And now we're seeing them try to get some offense going. A good infield pass. Metza's shot's going to be wide. Now on the other end.
One of those situations where we as commentators know more than they do in terms of what the situation is. A huge bump from apparently Jack on Virtuoso. Relating Wave quick to recover and quick to help out, and he's going to take it the whole way. Beautiful defensive play. Even better on the offense. Relating Wave making massive moves.
And he picked up that boost in the corner. Dead Monster, he was completely shook on this play. Was not expecting that double tap from Relating Wave off the ground. And we've been seeing more of those ground double tap shots come out in these high-level tournaments, and that one was done beautifully by Relating Wave.
Virtuoso and the rest of Endpoint have managed to turn this game around. Got themselves back up by 1. Polar. And as far as Metza.
Double commit.
But Dead Monster will be able to buy so much time. Tried to get a block. He did manage it. The only reason for that is not even to try and get any offensive pressure, but just to reset after the double commit. Tends to mitigate that quite a bit, although Relating Wave and Virtuoso have crashed into one another. Virtuoso quick enough to recover to help out Metza to avoid a 2v1. Launches the midfield again. Dead Monster's shot will not trouble Relating Wave. Even worse, the shot not powerful enough to prevent Relating Wave from even fully controlling it. Metza to Virtuoso. This has happened a few times now as Polar able to recover in time, but has he passed it over to his opponents? Dead Monster will make sure it stays out. There's a couple of times now that we've seen Stormtroopers not clear properly as Virtuoso makes life a little bit more difficult for himself.
Accidentally side flipping there. Shogun, that was a scary moment, one that makes you think that they're in trouble, and they still are. That backward pass could have been damaging for Endpoint as Stormtroopers are taking some big swings in this final minute.
Definitely feels like the sort of game where more chance have been created than we should really be seeing for the amount of goals that we've actually seen scored. Polar has got apparently Jack. He's put it behind him though. Jack might have pulled himself too far forward. Metza wants to go back to Virtuoso. Virtuoso on 0 boost. Cannot help him out of that. It's too fast for Relating Wave to go on the backboard. Ends up being left for the shot. Not powerful enough. Here comes Polar. Double save being used. Stormtroopers kept out. And Endpoint clinging on for the time being. One more throw here for Dead Monster and the rest of Stormtroopers. Polar to apparently Jack off the backboard, and Metza is already there. He's going to slow down this game as much as he can. A double commit is going to leave so much work for Dead Monster to do. And he simply cannot do it. Blitzing end, though, to game 3.
Blitzing indeed. I saw all of the linebackers just sitting there ready to rush the quarterback. And that pass off the backboard from apparently Jack, that had so much pace on it. And then the shot was so weak coming in. Then you saw the double commit on the goal line all around. Frantic. A frantic ending on that one. Endpoint thanking their lucky stars that they got out of this game and preserve the scoreline, because that was a very precarious spot for them.
And I really do want to pull attention to Relating Wave. He was by far the MVP of this game. A gorgeous goal when he transitioned from his own side of the field and just seemed to be fully in control of what was happening around every other moment. But one play I do want to sort of bring attention to here, James, is these infield passes. Both teams have been going for an awful lot of them so far. And both teams are struggling for different reasons. Stormtroopers have often found theirs blocked. As for Endpoint, we're getting an awful lot of passes across field that are just that little bit away from the attacker making contact and taking the shot.
Yeah, we've seen a couple passes go behind the attacker, and that always slows you down. Whether you're playing soccer, whether you're playing football, American football, or, you know, football as known by the rest of the world, when you pass it behind someone, you just can't slow down, get the shot, especially if it requires you to go backwards. You want to hit people in stride. So Endpoint, they've done it a couple times. We've seen them hit those passes in stride, and they're going for them. So it'll be fun to watch them try to continue that. As for Stormtroopers, in that last game, they had a scoring opportunity without a doubt that they just let go by. That shot from Dead Monster was so weak, and that could have been the equalizer. And now they're one game away from getting one more loss on their record and being one series away from elimination. And Metzenaris and crew for Endpoint, they would love this result to secure that spot in stage 2.
Dead Monster will try and take it. Couldn't quite get the second touch to put off Relating Wave. He has to stay downfield, though. Metza's still covering him. He's been so frustrating from Stormtroopers this entire series. Very few mistakes from Metza. Polar already up. It's just off the crossbar. Follow-up from apparently Jack. That is a great read. The crossbar, usually so cruel to the attackers.
And the flick was unbelievable from apparently Jack, who stays with the play the whole time. Metzenaris almost kept it out, but apparently Jack forcing that ball through. That flick, though, so much power, and we've seen apparently Jack have that in his back pocket, bring it out. Now off kickoff, sneaks this one in underneath the crossbar quickly, and a 2-0 lead for Stormtroopers.
It's just so quick. 3 touches, bim bam, and you have got yourselves a 2-goal lead. Stormtroopers putting a lot of the nerves behind them here for an all-important game. Asked earlier on, James, a couple of people on Twitter just asking, all right, what is the hot take? What is the the big surprise. And a lot of people saying to me, Stormtroopers 3-1 qualify. Those people right now not far off.
They could be right. They very well could be. You think back to game 2, it was a one-sided affair in favor of Stormtroopers. And now, in this first minute, we've seen Stormtroopers get 2 quick goals. Maybe another one here. Apparently, Jack is going to have to leave that. But Stormtroopers, Shogun, in the driver's seat early.
Dead Monster wants to continue. Couldn't find the 100 boost. Instead, nobody has managed to cover him. Here comes apparently Jack for the hat trick. Couldn't quite get there. Endpoint look rattled in game 4. They thought they had this figured out. And just instantly they've been proven very wrong. Virtuoso wants to keep this going. Apparently Jack's got him red. Oh, keep moving on. Apparently Jack always getting 2 touches for free before anyone is really starting to close him down. That's definitely not a player that you want to be giving that much space to.
Such a quick player. Even Dead Monster getting to the ball first. We've seen the speed in favor of Stormtroopers for quite a bit in this series. Even Metza coming in late. Oh, and he does get it. Finesses it over the defense. I was wondering if he got the right touch on it. This one, a miss from Dead Monster.
I think he would want it to be a little bit more convincing. But Metza,
goal's a goal. That's
yeah,
all.
he certainly will. Metza has had a bit of a better shooting day than usual that we see from him.
He probably wasn't expecting Dead Monster to miss. And when you know Polar off kickoff yet again. Endpoint has been getting clobbered on these kickoffs.
It certainly is. And it's always when we see Dead Monster and apparently Jack on the kickoff that they are struggling the most. It is the same one over and over again. Bounces off the right-hand side of the midfield on the wall, and it's always been them coming first. There's another one. Ooh. Dead Monster will get credit. But my goodness, they've got nothing for this.
Getting out of hand off kickoff. Endpoint has to figure something out. We've seen too many, and that one is going to put this game away. You feel a 3-goal lead, just about half the game left to go. And another kickoff. Now put Relating Wave in a spot where he's got to use up all his boost.
Well, it feels like we've just keep switching between 2 different series here. One where Endpoint are pretty much in control of the rotation, and another one where Stormtroopers are just blasting ahead early and seem uncatchable. We do head over to game 5. Certainly would make it very interesting.
It feels like Shogun, it feels like this game is the embodiment of the blue first place tracking shell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, you're winning and then you just get taken out, because it has been back and forth.
Horrid game so far for Endpoint. Need to try and pick up the pace, though. Still got 2 minutes, 3 goals. It's not something that happens all that often here at this level of play. But Endpoint would like to try and buck the trend. Polar to apparently Jack, and life is still difficult for them. Dead Monster will put this game away.
Dead Monster has all the time in the world. Not much boost. Doesn't really need to put much power on the shot because he knows that Relating Wave probably empty in the tank, having to get back to that ball to even get the save in that situation. And a rough game continues for Endpoint as Stormtroopers punch him in the mouth again. 5 goals.
Even worse. They've got Stormtroopers players trying to stall on them now. Just saw apparently Jack trying to go for the musty. And they will get punished for it. Virtuoso on the board. I mean, that's a good player as well to get a goal on if you are Endpoint. He has been stuttering quite a bit this game.
And that was an all-in play. Virtuoso gets beat to the ball. If apparently Jack wins that 50, he's probably scoring on the other end. Virtuoso sticking with it. Kudos to him. And another infield passing play. It is working out, or it worked out for Endpoint in that situation.
Jack's missed it as well, and it's skied! Oh. Relating Wade had a chance to try and make a real game of this, and he's botched it.
That hurts to watch. No matter who you're rooting for, that's just you feel the pain as a Rocket League player when you've got an open net and you blast it off the crossbar like that. It makes you hurt.
Well, Metza's shot earlier on wasn't convincing, but at least it was in. Relating Wave went full power. Unfortunately, it just skies it. I get the feeling that that was the one that had to go in. Otherwise, this game was over. Certainly starting to seem so. Polar not looking overly comfortable with that play, but apparently Jack comes to help him out. Watched again. Metanaris, the rest of Endpoint, just trying to find something here. Unfortunately, our analysis can only go as far, James, as maybe don't go 3 goals down in the first 2 minutes.
The kickoffs completely lost them this game. So they get one more here, and you feel like if Relating Wave perhaps hits that shot, the one he skied high, maybe they had a chance, but they were fighting uphill this whole game because of their kickoffs.
They have a chance at this, but they've got to score off the kickoff.
If this happens,
I would
eat a whole loaf of rye bread in one sitting with no water.
Oh, going to be Virtuoso up. Suddenly, I'm very biased with this matchup. Don't know where that feeling came from. I'm sorry. So apparently, Jack is going to try and get rid. Metanaris on the follow. Polar's save over to Virtuoso one more time. And that is the game over and done with. So no bread for you today, James.
Yeah, fortunately. Stormtroopers, they were in control. Basically, right from the kickoff, they scored 2 goals in the first minute. You felt like it might be another one of those games. Well, guess what? It was, as they kept it going. And Endpoint, they're going to have to go back to the drawing board, Shogun, because you just can't. At this level, you just cannot afford to give that many goals away off of the kickoff. Otherwise, you're going to lose. It happened so many times as we take a look at these replays. And for Endpoint, they've got a long way to go. This is it. Game 5.
Certainly is. Remember, teams have got themselves another chance, but you do not want those sort of nerves at all by playing in the final round, that round 5, where teams are currently at 2-2, and those will be coming up very shortly as well. So lots of Rocket League action still for you on today's broadcast. But for Endpoint, this is not a match they want to be losing. We saw Stormtroopers go down earlier onto a Dignitas that didn't quite look like they were firing on all cylinders just yet. Endpoint want to make a statement that they want to be taken seriously as a potential championship contender. You've got to be beating teams like Stormtroopers. Yes, they're an upcoming team, but they're also reasonably inexperienced at the freeze game. You cannot drop this series.
You really can't, but it's been Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde for Endpoint in terms of what we've seen on defense. And finally, a kickoff going in favor of Endpoint as they try to stabilize and might get an early one here.
Oh, it's horrid. Shot. It's a horrid angle for Metza to be coming in from. He's trying to chase the ball from the same side. Pass over to Metza one more time, and I don't quite know what Metza was after there. It's, again, what I brought up earlier on, James. Metza always seems to be too selfless when it comes to his offense.
Sometimes you got to take the shot. We even saw him have that tough shooting angle, wasn't able to get much power on it. I think it was a scoreable shot. So you're right. Let's see more aggression, see more selfishness from Metza, because we know he has it in him. We've seen him play in series and take matters into his own hands, scoring some phenomenal goals. They need him to step up here and lead the offense.
Apparently Jack's got the first touch. Ends up running out of ways to play it afterwards. 1 minute down. Still 0 goals between either of these two teams. Flip reset for Relating Wave. No, not quite. One of those ones where you try to figure out whether or not he's got it. So far, Endpoint definitely controlling the field. Need to make something of it, though. Relating Wave off the ceiling. That's going to be interesting. Apparently, Jack decides to respond in kind. Very heavy touches, actually, from both teams right now. Neither really wants to take 2 touches in a row unless it's in the air. As for the ground, it is just get rid. Oh, dead monster. I think the ball might have been going a bit too quick for him. Otherwise, you'd expect him to almost hook it onto the left-hand side of his car and go for a dribble.
Yeah, that pinch probably putting everybody on the edge of their seat. And this is Game 5 winner goes on to Stage 2. And that one could have been a double tap opportunity. You know the nerves are there for both of these teams.
That is the 3rd double tap we've seen attempted from both teams now, and no one's really succeeded on it. Here might be the crucial one, and it's Polar who comes out with a crucial first goal.
Ice in his veins. Polar floating by. Metza almost getting in the way, but Polar puts the shot low. That's exactly what was called for in that situation. Polar stepping up to the plate in a big moment for Stormtroopers.
Is it going to be redemption for Polar? Looks so rough earlier on. Huge save from Virtuoso. It was almost the same old story for Endpoint. They lose one goal and then they start losing a couple more. They've got to stop the bleeding early here. Recompose themselves. Virtuoso now already on. Being hassled by Polar, and suddenly Stormtroopers have taken the idea of, okay, well, how about we just make this chaotic? How about we just create as much pace as possible on the field and see if Endpoint can stand up to it? So far, Endpoint have done all right, but they're still giving up opportunities. Huge save from Metza. Relating Wave can now take over. It's Polar trying to shut him down. He's got Virtuoso on the right side. Virtuoso off the backboard, over to Metza. Metza's not going to be able to shoot from this one. Looks to keep the play going. Virtuoso tried to lay it off to Relating Wave, who was already going back. Still, they have got good positioning. Drop to Virtuoso! Go!
Wow! That was disgusting. We said maybe Metza should just keep passing. Look at that, right down to Virtuoso. And almost getting blocked. That was within a hair's length of being blocked, Shogun, but a powerful shot from Virtuoso. A great drop pass, and Endpoint right back in it.
Dead Monster off the backboard. Huge demo from Polar. Comes in apparently Jack and Metzanorus once again. Huge on the defensive goal line. You can demo whoever you want, but unless his name is Metzanorus, you're still going to struggle to score. Dead Monster gonna have to go by himself, and just a little bit too much to ask of him. Especially when you're going to go through the barrier of Virtuoso through to Metza. One each. 1.5 minutes on the clock. Metza bumped out. Virtuoso's got to try and cover. The big questions get asked, how much do Stormtroopers want to commit anymore? Went for a huge amount of pace once they got the goal up, but suddenly they've been reminded of mortality in this series. Polar, infield, it's difficult. Metza's out of position, and Dead Monster didn't want to go.
Scary moment again for Endpoint. We're approaching that final minute. Any mistake here would be deadly.
Endpoint have been ready for the taking, but so far, Stormtroopers have not pulled the trigger. Oh. Relating Wave still feeling a little bit ropey here. Endpoint not looking at their best. Maybe they can recover now. Apparently Jack gets hugely blocked from Metza. Wants to keep this going. First time shot off the post!
And that was a chance for Relating Wave. He knew his path was clear. Had to get a tough read, but it was very scoreable. I don't want to say routine, but it was something you expect Relating Wave to be able to put away, but you had mentioned him being a bit ropey, and you could tell that it's affecting him. Now a chance for Virtuoso, who scores it to take the lead. Virtuoso, both goals coming by his bumper, and that one in a crucial time.
25 seconds. Stormtroopers have got to find one more big play, or they are going to be heading down to a 2-2 record, and Endpoint will be moving on. Apparently Jack decided to delay it. Polar has taken out goalkeeper, but they had no follow-up going quick enough. Apparently Jack, good first touch. Going to keep it going. Polar ended up backflipping. Dead Monster will be tasked with keeping that offensive pressure on. Doesn't quite win it, though. Apparently Jack waiting for Polar. Passes it over to him. It's a great play, but just too close to him. Dead Monster looks to keep it up. Polar struggling to find his midfield boost. Apparently Jack wants the reset. He's got it. Good clear, and nobody is around for Stormtroopers. Dead Monster tries his hardest, but Endpoint have to sweat it through, but they have made it through to next week.
That was, Shogun, that was a shaky win. That was a shaky win, but a win nonetheless. I thought at times Endpoint was down and out. The games where they lost badly. Even in this game, when Relating Wave wasn't able to put that goal away, just bouncing it off the post, you thought that might be an omen for Endpoint, but Virtuoso, give that guy a pat on the back. Some shots from him that were exactly what Endpoint needed to put them over the top. That strong shot off the pass from Metzanorus, and then that cleanup, again, a powerful shot. Virtuoso, he's not just a bump and demo player, he can shoot too.
Certainly was. There was a lot of craziness that happened there. My goodness. But it will, however, be Endpoint moving through. Stormtroopers not out of it just yet, but when we come back from a short break, it is going to be Guild Esports taking on Vodafone Giants.